Okay, well, I am by myself this time, and we are back in Matthew. We're in Matthew 17. This is part 3, and we're in verse 14. So let's begin. When they came to the crowd, a man approached Jesus and knelt before him. Lord, have mercy on my son, he said. He has seizures and is suffering greatly. He often falls into the fire or into the water. I brought him to your disciples, but they could not heal him. Oh, unbelieving and perverse generation, Jesus replied. How long shall I stay with you? How long shall I put up with you? Bring the boy here to me. Jesus rebuked the demon, and it came out of the boy, and he was healed from that moment. Then the disciples came to Jesus in private and asked, Why couldn't we drive it out? He replied, Because you have so little faith. I tell you the truth, if you have faith as small as a mustard seed, you can say to this mountain, Move from here to there, and it will move. Nothing will be impossible for you. Okay, so here's a couple of little things that I see. Again, we talked about yesterday that there's a parallel kind of going on from what took place at Mount Sinai and also what took place on the Mountain of Transfiguration. Keeping in mind, this is right after the Transfiguration. Jesus and those 3 disciples are coming down the mountain, and they're met by the rest of his disciples. And now this crowd. So the crowd has seen this cloud. They may not have seen everything, but they saw something was going down on top of this mountain, and it's attracted them here to this spot. So there's this man who has brought his son who's having these seizures. Jesus's response is actually very similar to the response that Moses had again back when everything went down badly at Mount Sinai. He came down and the people had made golden calves. So what is said in Deuteronomy 32:5 is they have acted corruptly toward them to their shame, and they are no longer his children, but a warped and crooked generation. Now, this is not exactly right after the event that took place because Moses got upset. He threw the tablets down. There's another conversation, but this is the song of Moses, and it's the same, coming from the same context. So this is where Jesus is going. He's frustrated, but this word where he's talking about is saying that they have no faith whatsoever. They are perverse. He's not speaking necessarily to the disciples, but that there's just, the whole, like a general area is that they have no belief. And then he says, How long shall I stay with you? How long shall I put up with you? Bring the boy to me. Now, when he addresses the disciples in private, he says, Because you have so little faith. He's saying you have faith, but it's defective. There's some reasons why that might be defective, and we'll talk about that in just a minute. But it also made me recall another story. 2 Kings 4:31 is the story where Elisha is the woman, Shunammite woman. She has a son, and Elisha she at some point meets him because of the fact that her son has died. So Gehazi is his servant, and he sends Gehazi ahead of him with his staff to put on the child. And it says here, Gehazi went on ahead and laid the staff on the boy's face, but there was no sound or response. So Gehazi went back to meet Elisha and told him the boy has not awakened. When Elisha reached the house, there was the boy lying dead on his couch. So same similar thing where Gehazi was not able to perform a miracle. He had to have Elisha come and perform the miracle. So the same thing with Jesus. The disciples were not able to cast out this demon. So Jesus, all right, bring the boy to me. And he cast out this demon. So now we look at also kind of the context a little bit of what these disciples probably were feeling to get a little bit more understanding of why their faith was defective, why it was not working. Because right after that, he says, if you have faith as small, it's not about the amount of your faith. If you have just a teeny tiny amount, you can say to this mountain, remember, he's pointed to Mount Hermon, so it's extremely important, again, that he's talking about all the wickedness and the evil and all the high places and everything that we've talked about this past week. You can say to that mountain, move, and it'll move. It has to move. Nothing will be impossible. But why was their faith defective? Well, I mean, think about it. They had also been sent back or sent out a little bit ago. This was not the 70, but this is just the disciples, where they had been sent out to go and cast out demons. They saw that. They saw miracles. So they were basing all their knowledge, and they have this incident come up. And so they're basing what they need to do based on the experience they've already had without the presence of Jesus this time. So one, there's probably some pride, like, oh, we've got this, we can do this. But there's also probably a little bit of some jealousy that has taken root because 3 of them are up on the mountain, the rest of them are not. So they're with Jesus, they're seeing all this. So if you have anything that is a root that causes your faith to be defective, especially in the area in which you are trying to perform a miracle or you're trying to allow the Lord to flow, he cannot flow through you if it's blocked, as I've heard somebody say it, if there are faith blockers. And jealousy, pride, big faith blockers. So here they are having a similar spirit to the Israelites, actually, in that their faith is actually in question because the people had waited a really long time for Moses, and so their faith faltered, and therefore they turned to idols. Aaron made them a calf. Well, at this point, the disciples have lacked the right focus. And Jesus says in the other passages, that another gospel that tells about this story, Jesus said that this kind can only come out through fasting and prayer. Well, fasting is bringing yourself closer to the Lord, and it's removing anything that's in your life that is not good, that stands in the way. So the only way in some situations they're going to come out is if you get rid of the gunk that's there. So if there is jealousy, if there or envy, if there's pride, if there's anything that stands in the way or blocks your faith, you might have that little bit of faith, but it can be defective. So make sure that your mustard seed of faith has the growth potential, and that it's not dead inside, that it actually is not, that it can continue to grow and flourish, and the power is inside of that seed. The potential is inside the seed to increase and have development. But if there is something that stops it, you've got to get that stuff out of the way so that it can actually grow and flourish. Seeds can only flourish and grow if the blockers are out of the way to be able to fulfill its purpose. So, yes, in Mark 9 is where that parallel, and it has a little bit more details, and it talks about prayer and fasting. There is, and I may get into this, we'll see, but I went on a little bit of a study hunt because of all the different references to where Jesus said the faith is small as a mustard seed. And there's 3 different occasions. They're in different times. They're in different places. But it was very fascinating. So I might share that on a different time. But one of them took me to another section. And yeah, I think I'm going to have to do a different one because it's been really, really interesting study that I've been going on this week as well. But he does say this 3 times in different ways. If you have faith as small as a mustard seed, it's not about the size. It's not about the amount. It's where your heart is. Have you removed the things out of the way that need to allow that faith to continue to grow? Get rid of the faith blockers and don't let your faith be defective. You have so little faith, but it's not about the amount of faith. It's the things that are stopping the growth of that faith, and it's stopping it from being effective. So that is what was taking place here with this child. They could not cast the demon out because of the things that were in their heart that need to be removed through prayer and fasting so that they could be in the right place for the power of the Holy Spirit, for the power of Jesus' name to be effective in their life. So we'll leave that off here, and we will jump in tomorrow into part 4 where Jesus predicts his death the second time.